Hello and welcome, audience, to another episode of interviewing individuals and their roles within the neurodiverse community. This is Mark Esposito, and today I'm here with my next guest.
Hello, Mark. It's great to be here. My name is Valerie.
Valerie, pleasure to have you here. Tell me about your role.
So my role is as a younger sister, a year younger than my eldest sister, who is 45 years old, and she has Down syndrome. But she's high functioning. Probably, I was told around like you would consider maybe middle school level. She's self-sufficient for the most part, but does require assistance with certain tasks that, give her independence, laundry, doing her hair, certain minor tasks that she needs help with, but she's for the most part self-sufficient and she works.
Wow. So unlike some of the other roles of individuals I've been interviewing, were you born into your role, or were you someone who kind of decided this is what I want to do, or were you appointed it?
In terms of being a sibling of someone with Down syndrome?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I grew into the role, and to clarify that, meaning like we were not raised to identify my sister as having Down syndrome or disability. So I think it was up until I got to maybe 12 years old or approaching adolescence that I started to acknowledge a difference between her and I based on experiences and just interest. And that was how I think I started to see that there was a difference. And then having to go to different schools because she required a specific type of class. And that was when I started to feel that there was a difference. Otherwise, we grew up the same. There was no treating her differently. We each had our responsibilities, reprimanded for everything if needed. But I didn't acknowledge anything. I played with her. When you're a kid, you're innocent. You don't see anything different until you're exposed to school and outside world. And then you start to see how people with disabilities maybe are treated, or the separation that exists because we're not, in the same classroom or same functions, so to speak.
Yeah. That's a great perspective to have, for our listeners, and even for me to understand. I've had the opportunity to grow up with you and Beatrice, so it's also felt very natural and organic to not have this difference exist. It's more about who just needs more support. My next question is usually, what are the challenges you see in the community, or from your perspective in your role? But before I actually asked that, I was thinking, as you were talking about your role, was there like a clear moment indication that as a sister, did you ever feel that you kind of switched to a different role at any moment?
I think that when you are younger and you're innocent and you're not exposed to different things, and you don't approach adolescence and you have all those hormonal differences and these feelings that start to come about, and you're curious about experiencing life in a different way, playing and doing natural things. And I think that my role kind of was switched from being a sister that engages in an organic way, like through play and stuff like that. And as I got older and wanted to, start driving, or you start to get interest in the opposite sex, or things changed, I felt a separation, more of a distance. And then it turned into more, I think I just kind of assumed she would not understand what I was embarking, the new chapter. So there kind of was a separation. And then it became more to assist, where I would see, if my parents were not present, try to do things that I know that they would naturally help her with. Wasn't anything major, again, because thankfully she's high functioning, but there was a difference between in the engagement. I think that I probably maybe was looking for an older sibling who had already experienced stuff, so that I could ask for advice and kind of have that relationship with. And because that was not something that she was, I don't want to say like could do, it was not where she was at that time, that created a separation. So I think there was more of a distance, unfortunately. And then me just kind of knowing she'll need help with certain things and jumping in to assist, but not a natural bond that we had when we were younger. I think that was just because I was going through my own teenage stuff and life, and it just kind of makes you a recluse from your parents, but then again, feeling more isolated because I didn't feel like I could share those experiences with her.
Yeah, well, those are excellent point, because when you think about the relationship between siblings,
Mhm.
right? It's like that enmeshment, right? You get to
Mhm.
share you're under one house or
Mhm.
household, and you're sharing your parents' attention, and there's a change in the balance,
Mhm.
right? You had to see that shift over to her needing more support in certain
Mhm.
areas versus you. And I think that saying it's a distance is a great thing
Mhm.
to point out. And it makes me think about how, you know, when you have a sibling, because I actually am one of
Mhm.
three, you do have that moment where you're kind of like, oh, are they getting more than me? So then if they're kind of getting more, I kind of need an outlet or need support.
Mhm.
So then were you like always seeking outside of the household then for support?
The Again, it's and I don't know. I know some people say that there are things that, in our memory exists. If you have thorough conversations, it kind of like reignites the memory, right? I don't remember there ever being a time where my sister required so much support or that my parents were giving more to her than me. I don't see it that way. I just think it was just a natural understanding of she's not going through this stuff that I'm going through, so I just have to go through it by myself.
Mhm.
But we have such a big family and cousins that even though it's just the two of us, our cousins are like siblings at the same time.
Mm.
So we were always around family. So it never felt like I was in this house and I was kind of to myself. I just think it was just, and our cousins, I think, probably feel the same. Grew up with her. There are no significant differences, but nobody treated her differently. It's just when conversation would be had, if there's drinks and laughter, she may not partake necessarily in the topics, but she was still there and had a presence that was felt. I don't know if I answered the question, but
No.
yeah.
I think that's great
Yeah.
because again, the reason why again I'm asking these type of questions is more so to get your perspective
Mm-hmm.
in your role. And so, this is even for those listening, it's not about what's right or wrong or
Mm-hmm.
even maybe politically correct language. It's really just, giving what you feel is natural because we're all living, different things. My role is a service provider, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that my perceive my role is very different. And so when I'm asking these questions, if someone was to ask me these questions, I would answer them as naturally as you are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I look at the challenges of what you're sharing. Were there any that you felt were maybe unseen or unknown to those outside of that dynamic of your role?
I just think I was a very different kid. I just think I was an introvert. I don't know. If I could look back, if I could speed up, I don't know if I'm going to give you probably answers that apply to other questions, but I look back and I wonder, why did I assume that there was something that she could not do? Like, there were a lot of assumptions, I think, that I internalized, and instead of engaging her in wherever she could meet me at,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And I have a regret because, not that I'm 43, she's 45, I'll be 44 in June, but I feel like there was so much time lost on me making assumptions of what, for example, like, I have a cousin who said, oh, Beatrice is going to be 21 or something, let's go to a club. In my mind, I was like, she can't go to a club.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, but why did I make that decision? Because I think I'm very protective and I don't want others to make her feel uncomfortable, but she doesn't see herself that way, which is a beautiful thing. So it's almost like I'm dimming her light without her even knowing it, when she doesn't even acknowledge that there's anything different about her. But I'm already thinking about what everyone else, how they will receive, how they will give her attention, negative or positive. And that's already kind of, you know, not allowing me to experience something great with her because of my own personal fears. And I think I spent a lot of time being someone that worries but doesn't express it. I think that's a waste of time, So I think back and I think of all the stuff that she's interested in, and I'm like, I should have just, like Marie Noel. I have a cousin named Marie Noel who was always like that, very much a cheerleader for that. And she's the only cousin that I feel like really try to absorb all of it, like really want to give experiences and just effortlessly. And I would say that she is someone that I admire for that. And I wish that I had gravitated more in that direction a lot younger, so I would have more memories instead of just saying, I have a sister with Down syndrome that I played with up to a certain age. And then there was a distance, and then I never kind of tried to build something new, foster something new with her.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's so well said when you're dimming her light, because what I'm hearing isn't someone who's putting like a cover over this like burning candle. I see more as you're putting like protective hands around it, and it's cautionary, right? You're looking out for your blood. You're looking out for your sibling, and it's hard not to fall into that practice of maybe holding them back or saying, "I want to protect them from others." It makes total sense. It can be very difficult to know when to maybe not take the hands away completely from I guess giving it, but how to pull them back just enough to know where that middle ground is.
And I watch my parents with her because they're her biggest advocate, and they constantly use the word with her in moments where she may be challenged to say, you have to advocate for yourself. You have to do that. You people are going to treat you how you allow them to treat you, and you have to advocate for yourself. And so hearing them do those things with her and getting on her about, Beatrice, you have this to do. You didn't do that today. Not cutting her any slack, like, and still, or understanding how far to push, but still push, So, yeah.
Adversity and growth, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot of room for that. Well, that's such a great moment for us to transition, where I look at, have you had any successes or observed any successes as a sibling that has empowered your role?
She just has the best disposition. She's just someone who's like the most easygoing. Like, she's had hip surgery before. Can only see out of one eye, and that eye has to have cataract surgery soon. And an example of her, and again, I'm like kind of jumping all over because you're sparking different ideas as you're asking me questions. She came back from her last doctor's appointment and said, it was good. I have to get cataract surgery, but it's okay. Like, everything is like, it's okay. Like, I can still watch TV. I have one eye. It's good. Like, there's never a complaint. There's never that. And there's in something I'm very envious of that. Her ability to just be so in touch with everyone's feelings. Remember everyone's birthday. Like, ask how you're feeling if she heard anything about something going wrong. Like, just loving and patient and always in a good disposition. Seeing that, along with my parents not treating her differently, but advocating for her, is very motivating for me to want to jump in to understand how to best take care of her. And I think that's my challenge now. And I'm jumping around. I'm sorry for that. In like just trying to understand what her needs are, and a fear of not being as good as my parents when I have to take that position.
That's an excellent point. I don't feel like you're jumping around at all, because that is empowering to see such a strong model, right? You're seeing your greatest models, which is your parents, right? And you're seeing them work with someone so close, which is your sister, your sibling. And so you see these powerful people doing beautiful things and hard things and overcoming things. And then you start to wonder, am I capable of also living up to that standard? And so I think it's a completely fair thought and feeling. But I think that's where the success lies, is that's where you come from, right?
And I'm very proud. Yes, yeah.
So if you're coming from that, I think it's going to be just as organic and natural for you as it was for them to push and to fight.
Yeah. They're made of something different, though, than their generation. It's different. But, and I'm a mother now, I'm a wife. And so I just think about all the responsibilities and how life just can change. And I just want to be prepared. So my challenge now is trying to have the conversation with my parents where they understand that I know they're still here. Thank God. They're healthy. They can do it. But I need to be prepared so that I can execute the best as possible. Yeah. So them trusting me or knowing that I can take care of it. I think that their whole thing is like, we're still here. You're our child. She's our child. If there's something that we need, we'll tell you. But I've observed that, you can plan for things and life happens. And this is not a task that I would take lightly. So I want to make sure that I understand, but I also need to be fair and know that I'm sensitive and I'm passionate and I worry. And I have to know how to process things in a calm way so that they can see that I'm capable of doing it and not be worried about burdening their daughter, which is me, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense.
Yes.
If anything, I look forward to when you have the opportunity to listen to your own interview, because it sounds like you might be dimming your own light a little bit, because you just mentioned all the qualities needed to be that kind of advocate, to be that kind of role model. And so, and I look at it and I think, what are things that you kind of wish people outside looking in knew?
I just think, first of all, I don't see that many individuals with Down syndrome, which is interesting. I don't know if I live in Westchester. I do see and I appreciate a lot of stores. They have hired individuals with disabilities. So my sister actually works at ShopRite for like years and years and years, and as she works like the bagger, and you'll put things away. And I remember even sometimes, just a random off-topic thing, she'll come home sometimes and say, "Oh, I got a tip today. I'm not supposed to get tips, but I got a tip today." I'm like, "Oh, that's great, Beatrice." And then sometimes she'll say, "Somebody told me I'm moving too slow and they were nasty to me." And I just figured they're probably just having a bad day. It's not about me. And even her ability, because if I hear that, I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm already like, "What is it?" And she's like, "No, they just probably had a bad day, and it's not my problem. I just let it go." And even just to do that. So I just think people just remembering that we all have to be patient with each other. Some people have disabilities that you can see. There's certain characteristics, that are noticeable, so you can identify that there may be a disability. But I think that we all are dealing with something. I just think that if we're patient and just kind and understanding, I think that, that's, and don't think of stereotypes of, how from back in the day, how people with Down syndrome were treated. Because I remember seeing stuff when I was younger where it would be almost like, I don't want to speak, how do I phrase this? Not well kept, almost like a child with a disability doesn't deserve to be presentable or have confidence, and that would always stick out in my mind. And that's not, my sister is to the nines with her jewelry, her nails, like, what I mean? It's completely opposite, but it's all about, promoting self-confidence and, again, advocating for yourself. And that's what my parents did for us since we were little. So I guess I would just say, don't, be kind, be patient, and feel blessed that, for differences that you see in others, skills that you have that others don't, and don't pass judgment. I guess that's what I would say.
Oh, that's beautiful. It really is. It really is beautiful. I use that term a lot in the interviews and even in the work that I get to do. That it's beautiful because there is beauty in that, right? And seeing how people are able to carry themselves, individuals carry themselves through really challenging moments. Like to say that, others having a bad day. The New Yorker in me is very quick to be like, "Excuse me."
Yeah,
like you just said,
yes, yeah.
We get to be very sharp and quick, and like we're kind in one way, but in another way, we're kind of also looking at it going, "Don't disrespect me." And your sister sounds like she's able to just go with it and not play too much into it.
No,
right?
And she is a fierce auntie for my son. Like, she does not take any mess from anybody. She doesn't take any mess from anybody. Very protective, very sweet, very reliable. Yes, very honest. I think is a beautiful thing. Yeah.
What would you say is something that you think maybe people might get wrong about your role?
That I have to do so much for her. That there's maybe pity involved, or like if you hear that you have a sibling and it couldn't be nothing. It's so far from those things. It's so far from that. It's not like that at all. And that's why I always lead with even saying sometimes that she's high functioning, because she does have group outings, that, are composed of individual different disabilities. And she does have a friend that does have Down syndrome. But I say this to say, like, her speech, everything surpasses her peers. So it's not like that. I think just hearing a word, you have a vision and association. It's not like that at all. It's a very typical day-to-day, just understand there may be certain things that people will be more patient with, but it's nothing but a blessing. We celebrated her 45th birthday the other day, and my parents both spoke and toasted to her, and we're just talking about how she's just the biggest blessing and how she makes every day easy, and how we all learn from her on a regular basis. So yeah, that's our household. It's very, she's the icing on top of the cake.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things actually about Beatrice is that she speaks multiple languages.
Yeah, wow. She understands French. I think once, you know how it is, like once you don't speak it often, like when our grandmothers passed, we spoke with them So she understands it. But yes, to your point, she grew up with hearing both French, Creole, and English in the house. Yeah.
Because the thing about how you said, she's ahead of her peers, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people that are that age that are having a hard time with English.
Yes. Yes.
And Beatrice will speak to me. I can speak to her in French, and it's never been, it's actually how I greet her hello and say goodbye, and how we talk with one another, and it's awesome. And I always think about that as someone who is working in early intervention and full lifespan, because I work with teenage and adult. I work on language skills and development, and I think about what a strong motivator it is when I think about Beatrice. I'm like, wow, we can get there.
Yes.
We can actually get there, and it's so beneficial because she has so many more connections.
Yes.
Right.
And my parents, already cut you off. My parents always said that back then when my mom had Beatrice, that like everyone was telling her that the odds are against you. She's not going to be able to do this. She's not going to do that. And even my parents and their friends have all said it's because your parents advocated and did so much work independent of what they were told and the services that they may or may not have been provided with, that's why she got that far. So that's to say that there's no cap for anybody, right? Like if you push and you push, regardless of a disability or not, you don't know what you're truly capable of until you really expose yourself. And I think that is how she was raised. That's how we were raised. No.
I think it's great. I think it's really great because there's also this other component of what we talked about, the us being, there's a potential of being disrespected, but I think with the pushing, right, with parents pushing their child, or even as a sibling, you're working with your sister, there is a foundational respect, right, that you have for that individual. And you said it's not pity, it's empathy. Because you go, I would hope someone would not get behind me and push me, but stand beside me and hold me when I feel like I'm not capable at that moment.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful. I work with so many families, and parents want to get behind their kid and push them forward, but the unfortunate part is that the kid doesn't get to see them because they're behind them, right? The parent is actually behind them, and the kid doesn't know to look over their shoulder. They don't always want to look over their shoulder. Sometimes they just want to look to the side and see their parent there. They want to see their parent in front of them to see what are they working towards. And it's great to hear that's what the journey has been for Beatrice, right? Even for yourself and in your role, it hasn't been something where you've been left behind or forgotten, or you really get to stand beside her in this. And if you're ahead of her, it sounds like you're looking out, right? You're making sure that there's no holes in the road, and if there is, giving her that trust that she'll know how to traverse them.
Yes. And in turn, it's funny because even my son who's 4, he's starting to become curious. So he'll see like Beatrice has one eye that's completely glazed over because she can't see. So now he's curious, and he's like, he calls her Shibi. He says his nickname. He's like, Shibi, are you okay? Do you have your eyes? And she's like, oh, I just have a little surgery or something. And he doesn't know what it means, but she's able to answer him in a way that he has an answer, without, just like curious. And he sees how attentive we all are with her. So even when she got off the bus the other day, she takes a little bit slower to walk because of her hip. He waited and he took her hand and he said, okay, she be 1 step, 2 step. So it's like a natural, he from being in that household, because we live up there now, he already knows to look out, but he observes. And I think that observing, being caring in that way is going to also be, God willing, who he is when he's outside of the household. So.
Children are the future, as they say.
Yes.
What do you hope to see in the future in regards to roles or care and support for the neurodiverse community?
I think projects like what you're doing, I commend you for the passion, because you have to be passionate about it. I think that there are some TV shows that I've seen that have been focused on a spectrum. It could Down syndrome. It could be, it could be anything, but I've started to see more shows that are not on like the main channels. I think that if there's more exposure like that, then it'll become normal. And I think that when you create some kind of a visual, consistent visual, then things are not so shocking, or you kind of are able to see those individuals in different light, because they're actually highlighting what they're capable of doing and their demeanor, not this, it's not a negative, it's like a dark, not a dark shadow. I think that the more we see that, I think that that is what will allow people to have a better understanding, to be more aware, and to be more accepting, and even maybe even more motivating when you see someone in a position, you know. I think that's big. I think it's just about talking, and I have started to see a lot more advertisements for clothing companies, or if it's like Dove or the Gap or something, where I have seen some diversity in the children or models that they have, and I think that that's amazing. I love that. I love it. So I think that making things more normalized by seeing it more will make it so people it's more or used to it, and are learning themselves while watching and hearing things.
Yeah, that increased exposure can really make a
Yes.
difference, because it can take away that feeling of feeling so isolated or alone or distant,
Yes.
right?
And also for someone who has a disability to see someone like them on TV. Like, why not? You know?
Yeah, there's something to be said when you feel seen by seeing someone else.
Yes,
Right.
similar. Yes. And that goes even beyond having a disability. It's beyond that. Wanting to be seen and heard in different ways for different people is crucial, you know, I think.
Huh? So as we come to the conclusion
Mhm.
of our interview, is there anything else you'd like to share or speak on?
Just not to get stuck in your head. I think that I tend to get stuck in my head a lot, in my thoughts and my worries and my fears. And I think that when you're able to talk or ask questions, it is enlightening on so many levels. So that's what I think I would try to teach myself that now, because it's never too late. But I think I would say that for anyone who's stuck in their head, feeling guilty about feeling bad, maybe if you had a sibling disability. Like, I remember going through a point where maybe I was even a little bit embarrassed. I was a teenager and I felt guilty for feeling embarrassed, but that's natural for being a teenager, you know? So not feeling guilty, and don't shut your thoughts off. Like, be open, ask questions so that you can feel better. Being trapped with your own thoughts is nothing good for anybody. So yeah.
Well, Valerie, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your experience, your insights. It's really amazing to hear your evolution through your journey as being a sister,
Mhm.
right? As an advocate, as a mother now,
Mhm.
right? There are so many roles within one,
Mhm.
right? And it's hard to say, I'm this, I'm that. Coming in today, I really was hoping to just have exactly this, and it couldn't have been any better.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your time. If anybody has any questions about, Valerie's role, you could always email. Or if you're looking to support, I know lots of families that have siblings who may be experiencing the same thing. So yeah. Valerie, thank you again. And to those listening, I hope you were able to enjoy this interview today, and be on the lookout for the next episode.